Hello, good morning and welcome to Friday edition of VOP This Morning. Now, today is Friday, the 17th day of January 2025. January is fast running down. Oh, well, I am Chukuma Okoro, and on the show today, we are going to talk about the tax reform bills as Nigerians governors have rejected increase in VAT but backed Tinubu's tax reform bills. Oh, well, one will ask, why the sudden change? The governors that have been up against it, up against the contentious tax reform bills, and all of a sudden they say, well, we throw our weight behind it. That's one of the topics of discussion. And we have people here, inside, guests who are going to help us make sense of what happened, what changed. Did water pass through the bridge or what, and all of that. That's not the only topic anyway.
All right, so we do have a few other things we'll touch on this morning as well. Judicial challenge. Nnamdi Kanu offers 1 million naira to anyone who can find a counterexample. Oh, well, these are the conversations we'll touch on this morning. But before we go deeper into these conversations, let's make you aware that you can be part of the show by visiting our pages on social media. Across social media, we are at VOP TV Live. That's Instagram, x.com, and Threads, and the rest. But then on YouTube, where you're watching us from, we are Voice of the People TV. And there's also the number that will be scrolling on your screen very shortly, with which you can drop a 1-minute video of yourself reacting to the conversation we are having. Or better still, just send a message. Or you can also call into the show and let's hear your voice. All right? Well, I am Moses Humphrey.
And I'm Fina Okechukwu. A big welcome to today's VOP this morning. Like my colleagues rightly said, you have to be part of today's show because it is interesting already. This one is not, it promises to be interesting. It's interesting already because, just a few days after the Minister of State for Defense, Bello Matawalle, demanded that we need to procure more modern equipment for the Nigerian Army and other security agencies to be able to end the issue of banditry and terrorism in the country. As a matter of fact, but I always said we needed like 50 APC, that is armored personnel carriers, somewhere in Zamfara. That alone can help them, squash these terrorist groups that have been causing issues in that region. Meanwhile, a statement issued by Daberechi Asonye for the Director of Information and Public Relations, Ministry of Defense, on Thursday, claimed that Matawalle, made this known during the presentation of the 2025 budget proposal. The statement is coming amid 9 personnel of the Nigerian Armed Forces having been ambushed and killed by Boko Haram terrorists, as the terrorists also lost scores of their members in a hot crossfire in Borno State. It happened yesterday, Thursday. The minister emphasized the necessity of strong collaboration with, the MPs, noting that both the House and Senate committees had demonstrated steadfast commitment and cooperation, throughout the fight against this unscrupulous element, if I'm to call them that. But do we really need 50 APCs? Is 50 billion naira not enough for us to fight? Before we will be able to say, let's increase this. It's just 80 million that we took out from that. And, Matawalle is complaining about it. Chukuma.
Oh, well, Fina, it's the minister and his budget. I think we said much about it the other day, and he's asking for more money. He's asking for 20 APC, armored personnel carriers, not Progressive Congress, so armored personnel carriers, Progressive Congress, so armored personnel carrier, so that he can flush out just within, say, 2 months,
2 months,
and all of that. So, it's up to the House to oblige him or not. And he also complained about the welfare of soldiers, especially that they lack personal group insurance. I mean, people that are caught in the crossfires, of soldier terrorism, banditry, kidnapping, and all of that. The only thing the government owes them is to take adequate care of them and their families so that their sacrifices will not be in vain.
All right. Well, I think, like you rightly said, we've dealt with this, stretched it in the course of the week, and I think we actually spoke about this just before the Armed Forces Remembrance Day. We wait to see what the House will approve. I think the minister was saying, look, Nigerians have the impression, and Fina also pointed out, that Defense is taking a whole lot. So the minister is trying to tell Nigeria, look, it's not what you think. Defense isn't taking as much as you think. And if you look at what the Ministry of Defense is asking for, 50 billion, well, with current realities, I think it's a little, my opinion, which I am reiterating because I said this in the course of the week, I don't think it's too much. If and only if
the document they had received, the committee chairman's attempt to allow the IGP to continue with the issue was resolved, met strong resistance, leading to a heated shouting during the session. Though the dispute escalated, prompting the senator to stage a walkout. Order was eventually restored, and the IGP resumed his presentation, reiterating his long-standing call for the Nigerian police force to be removed from the restrictive envelope budget system. Interesting. I think at this particular time, Nigerians wouldn't say that, you know, the 10th Assembly, they are not doing their work. We've seen how they are, you know, cross-examining all the papers that is being brought before them. First, it was the JAM office.
areas for specific things, like, for example, what we have on paper is not what you're saying. I think there should be what we have on paper is not what you're saying. I think there should be more synergy between committee members and members of the House. There should be more, they should align. Because if you told the IGP to present a summarized version, but what they have on their table is, you know, the full version, it might be confusing for those that don't understand. And talking about the House, there's another story that trended yesterday. Internet was on fire yesterday when a member from, well, we'll touch on this one. We'll touch on this one after this. Let's get Chukwuma's thoughts on this one first.
Well, Moses, what is going on in the police, in the budget system, in the budget defense and all of that shows that, look, I think our Ministry of Budget and Planning, is that what they are called? Ministry, but there's a ministry in charge of budget and all of that. I think they have their work cut out for them, if you ask me, because this is not the first time we are noticing discrepancies, you know. At the time last year, we had 3 budgets flying around between the presidency, the National Assembly, and the ministry itself, you know. And up until this moment, those controversies, those contradictions were, and we are still operating, we are still running 3 budgets now. And if we sign off this one now, it will become the 4th budget within a cycle, you know, 2 budget cycles now. But that doesn't speak well about how we manage our budget, the performance and the appraisals and all of that. The police is coming out to say they want to be removed from the restricted envelope. Oh, well, members of the National Assembly, you can help them tear the envelope now and put it, let them put it wherever they want to put it. But the fact remains that the police force needs reform. The police force needs reform. Anyhow, if you spin in 360, the only thing that you see is, I need reform. That is what the police will tell you. That is, police itself will tell you, I need reform. And it's time. If it's going to start with this budget process and all of that, well, it's wonderful. That would be good. And like Fina made mention about the House applauding Sheikh Oloyede for using 850 million naira for fumigation and all of that. Very well.
Was he applauded?
Yes. They did. They said there's nothing wrong in the money.
There's nothing wrong with it.
You know, they said there's nothing wrong in him using it. In fact, there was nothing wrong in how he spent all the monies that he generated and whatever remitted or not. In fact, they gave him a pass mark 100%. So it's like 2, not strange people now, you know, 2 bedmen between JAMB and the National Assembly. That is what I see. You know, you pat my back, I pat your how do they say it, you know?
Rub my back, I rub
you
yours.
rub my back, I rub, and all of that. That is what is going on. Well, let them continue. Nigerians are watching. Nigerians are speaking out.
But there's another question I have there. You know, that was when Nnamdi made a statement saying that the whole envelope system thing, you know, in the budget was never a legal entity. You know, by the,
changed,
you know, it could be changed. And I was asking, if that is the way, then why is the National Assembly not looking into it? Why would they wake up and say
it's
that?
not, well, for him to say it's not but it was really difficult to put the words together. He found it extremely difficult. And questions rose as to the caliber of people that are lawmakers in Nigeria that do not understand. Now, it's not about English now. It's not about expressing yourself. It's about understanding what you are supposed to do in the first place. So I understand that some people may not be proficient in this in spoken English, but they're intelligent enough, they're smart enough, they can do other things pretty well. Absolutely. Absolutely understand that. But this isn't about speaking English. This is about understanding what you were asked to do. Rescind emotion. Well, I know Nigerians will bring out a meme on this one very shortly. But let's watch. Let's take a listen.
Evolution coming from the list coming from the Department of Energy.
Just say I move for the rescission of my first motion.
Okay,
Of my amendment, yes.
I rise to move the motion as the decision move as amended. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
I move to rescind the decision, the resolution of the first motion I move.
Okay, Mr. Speaker, sorry, sir. I rise and I move to the issue to recite
The resolution of the first
resolution
amendment.
moved by
Thank you.
motion.
Have it.
Nigerians bringing memes.
There you have it.
I'm waiting for
All right, Mr. Speaker. Sorry, sir. I can't wait for that. That part, I'm sure somebody somewhere is trying to crop it up. All right.
Now, Moses,
Mr. Speaker. Sorry, sir.
Now, Moses, you are very mischievous. You are very mischievous. Because I don't know why this thing is confusing you.
It's confusing.
Why?
It's confusing.
Why is it confusing you? Because, I mean, this is just an ordinary member of the House of Assembly. Give it to him now. It could have been
No. It's not an ordinary.
No, I mean, in comparison to what I want to say now.
Okay.
Don't go there.
No, where do you think I'm going to?
Maybe you're heading towards the south.
Now you're leading me on now. So, I mean, when somebody cannot pronounce 1,668,527,000 and all of that, it becomes, you can excuse the honorable member if he cannot rescind his rescission, that he made a move. He was simply trying to tell the speaker that, look, this motion must stand. That is what he meant by what he said. Oh, well, like Moses said, look, these things, we shouldn't actually measure people by their oratory and their eloquence, their elocution and all of that. We have very smart people, who cannot even make one correct sentence, but like Moses also said, this thing is, it speaks beyond speaking. It speaks about understanding of what you are supposed to do. I mean, he was simply asked to take back what he said, and he couldn't at that level. It's quite unfortunate. Now, you begin to interrogate the process that led to his election, because I know that there are very well-educated people in that constituency. Well, maybe because one big stakeholder just picked him out and said, you are the one. I told you, sorry, let me just take a few seconds to tell a story of what happened in Ekiti State when a certain governor, there was this woman that helped him, win election in a particular zone, and another stakeholder said, look, Mr. Governor, this is the woman that ensured that you won elections, and it was a swing location, and the governor said, okay, we'll get a place for her. Now, at a certain time, just shortly after that, like 2-3 days, a certain position came out, in the Ministry of Education. Now, the stakeholder told the governor, look, governor, there's a position, they say, put the woman there. And one of the governor's aides said, sir, this woman cannot read, and I say, employ a secretary for her.
So put her there,
and employ a secretary to her to do the work. So she's just a figurehead. It happens all the time, even in our federal ministries here in Nigeria. So it speaks to the process of election and selection of people that take charge of whatever we call our collective patrimony and all of that. It isn't good. You also have...
So we see this a lot, even with the executive, I'm sorry to say, where some people wake up, they can't, read out what is being given to them to also, read out what is being given to them to also read and all that.
It's
and you want to ask what is happening.
Last word from me.
Okay.
There are people that if you encounter them, you never know that they didn't go beyond school.
Yes, they are there.
All right, then. Well, let's look at the papers now. Let's take a little breather. When we come back, we'll be going into the papers, looking at the headlines. Join us again. Well, thanks for joining us again. Now let's look at the newspapers, figuring out what headlines they have for us today. From the Daily Independent, the banner headline here reads, Governors back tax reform bills, reject increase in VAT, endorse revised VAT sharing formula, saying it ensures equitable distribution of resources. On top of the masthead, 2025 budget, Senate will ensure every naira spent touches lives of Nigerians, according to Akpabio. Rivers PDP crisis, Ewo threatens to sanction Wike, others over anti-party activities. Court sacked Chukwuemeka, claims he remains party chair. PDP NWC backs Ewo-led Rivers State ESCO. And then, Nigeria's inflation will start moderating from January. Analysts, NAS considers exempting Nigeria police from envelope budgeting system. Pengerson links high fuel price to FX volatility. Carpets FG over frequent cases of greed collapse. Alleged 12.3 billion naira fraud, EFCC to arraign Otudeko, ex-First Bank MD, on Nosonya. Wike revokes Uzodinma Diri, Abbey, 565 others plots of land in Abuja. All right, so, and then the bottom strip there. Third mainland bridge safe. FG assures Nigerians. All right.
On the cover page of Vanguard newspaper this morning, the banner headline there reads, Tax bills. Governors offers a new formula for sharing VAT proceeds. I will take that again. Tax bills. Governors offers a new formula for sharing VAT proceeds. And riders to that propose VAT distribution based on 50% equality, 30% derivation, 20% population. Back Tinubu on reforms. Why North is jittery over tax reform? That is coming from Senator Akpoti Uduagan. Then we have a major pictorial, and that is from the Governors Meeting Presidential Committee on Tax Reform. And the window headlines on the cover page of Vanguard newspaper this morning are, crude oil price will dictate petrol pump cost. That's coming from Robobiri. Influx of ISWAP, Southern governors mobilize, activate regional security. FG to MS Sanusi, we don't need your approval for Tinubu's laudable policies. Those stories are on page 7 and 9 and 15, respectively. And we have other headlines to be. There's another bold headline there. How hardship drives some Nigerians to look for food in garbage. All right, and that story is on page 14 of the Vanguard newspaper. Rowdy session in NAS as IGP presents 2025 budget. Kidnapping. Nigerians may have paid 10 trillion naira ransom in 2024. Soludo, I'll take that again. Kidnapping. Nigerians may have paid 10 trillion naira ransom in 2024. That's coming from Soludo. And we have, riders to that bold headline I once read before it, and it says, it's national emergency with devastating consequences. That's from expert. Warns of grave health risk for children. Says scavengers at risk of lead poisoning, cancer, malnutrition, mental injuries, others. Scavenging strips people of human dignity. That's coming from sociologists. Call for social safety net to reduce poverty. And then those are the headlines you'll find on the cover page of Vanguard newspaper today.
Now, let's quickly run through the Daily Trust with the window headlines. Truck kills 6 family members, 8 others in Benue. Abuja, Kaduna, Kano Road, ready in 14 months. Federal government. 6 terrorists, 5 soldiers die in Sokoto gun duel. Sokoto has entered. Now, the major headline, the banner headline, tax reforms. Governors reject VAT hike, propose new sharing formula. Stop scrapping of TET fund, Nasendi, NITDA. Now we have another bold headline there. Families of Zamfara airstrike victims demand compensation. The bottom strip headlines. Israel kills 75 Palestinians amidst ceasefire deal. Presidency to Sanusi, don't undermine our reforms. And the last but not the least, oil and gas, Lokbobri assures of sustained collaboration. That's all from the Daily Trust newspaper.
All right, so let's touch on The Guardian right now. From The Guardian newspaper, the banner headline here reads, War against terrorists. Caught in the middle, survivors count cost of accidental airstrikes. Unfortunate story there. FG, NIMC launched digital cards to assist farmers. Others, Boko Haram ambush. UN demands justice for 40 killed in Borno. Tax reform. Governors, presidency shelve VAT hike. Agree on new revenue sharing formula. EFCC to arraign ex-bank chiefs over alleged 12.3 billion naira fraud. PDP shuns Ondo LG poll as police restrict movement. One miscreants. Rowdy session at National Assembly over budget defense. DHQ blames external forces, local collaborators for terrorism surge in Northeast. Police seal PDP secretariat in Rivers over leadership crisis. And the bottom strip there. Rebasing. Focus on economic reforms, stable fiscal policies, LCCI charges FG. These are the headlines from the Guardian newspaper.
On the Punch newspaper this morning or this day, the banner headline reads, Dangote refinery projects 650,000 barrels per day June, plans crude import. Ryder, facility now producing 500,000 barrels per day as officials look beyond Nigeria to meet demand for product. Beside the masthead, Pengasson projects petrol price hike as crude cost rises. Window headlines are, governors propose new VAT sharing formula, OK tax bills. Defense headquarters blames foreigners for renewed terror attacks. 2.3 billion naira fraud, EFCC to arraign Otudeco, ex-First Bank MD mandate. And then we have other headlines to be, Fubara, Wike camp, clash as police occupy Rivers PDP secretariat. Ogun guard arrested for allegedly defilement of 6-year-old. The last but not the least of the headlines you see on the cover page of the Punch newspaper today is INEC deletes 7,746 dead persons from voter register.
Okay.
All right, that's it on the show. That's it. Well, that's it for the newspaper headlines. Stay with us as we get into the conversation proper. Tax reform bills, Nigerian governors reject the increase in VAT. Sharing formula changed, and then they basically rescinded their initial refusal. Well, let's look at what changed when we come back from this break. Join us again.
We go to bed empty hunger.
To the blaring horns of a hustling city, the loudest voices of the common man got a medium to be heard.
This particular administration, they were coming unprepared.
It's not a bad thing to renovate the president's lodge.
Through top-notch programming, unbiased reportage of news, sports, business, entertainment, and cultural documentaries, Voice of the People, 90.3 FM, became a symbol for 21st century media. And now, a new baby is born. Voice of the People Television, VOP TV, youthful, full of vigor and penchant for excellence in the continent's media space, exposing the wrongs, applauding the rights, dissecting the news without fear or favor, through factual and accurate stories and contents.
Corruption kills three things that makes a society.
Representing the interests of the people and giving them a voice. Voice of the People TV is here to stay towards building a fair society. VOP TV, Voice of the People Television, truly a voice for the people.
Thank you so much for staying with us, still VOP this morning. And our first conversation today, the Nigerian Governors Forum, NGF, has rejected moves by the federal government to increase value-added tax, VAT. The governors, while making their position known after a meeting in Abuja on Thursday, that was yesterday, said the move is untimely. But according to a communique issued after the meeting, the governors backed President Bola Tinubu's controversial tax reform bills. But the NGF chairman and governor of Kwara State, Abdul Rahman Abdul Razak, said that the forum endorsed a revised VAT sharing formula to ensure equitable distribution of resources of 50% based on equality, 30% based on derivation, and 20% based on population. The governors have resolved that there should be no increase in the value-added tax rate or reduction in corporate income tax at this time in order to maintain economic stability. Also, they have called for the continued exemption of essential goods and agricultural produce from VAT, as that would help safeguard the welfare of citizens and promote agricultural productivity. They also, at the end of the meeting, recommended that there should be no terminal clause for Tertiary Education Trust Fund, that's State Fund, and National Agency for Science and Engineering Infrastructure, NASENI, and National Information Technology Development Agency, NITDA, in the sharing of development levies in the bills. We have with us in the studio this morning to help make sense of this. We have Barrister Asim Adams, a lawyer by profession and also a social and political commentator, analyst. And also we have Mr. Dele Fanibo, a seasoned reporter and VOP TV in-house political analyst. And we'll also be going to our outstations. We'll get to Benin station, we'll also get to Abuja station to get the opinion of the people we have in our station. Good morning, gentlemen.
Good morning.
Good to have you in today's show.
It's a pleasure always.
All right, now let me start with you, Barrister Asim Adams. Suddenly, I'm happy that even the governor of Kwara State says that the meeting and everything that happened for them to accept the tax reform bill that they've been kicking against, happened untimely. But all the same, that they are willing to take it. Now, one want to ask, what really happened? What changed? Why is it that the North suddenly have to come back to say, okay, fine, we are accepting this tax reform? They've been kicking against it all this while. The likes of Babagana Zulum, who is a professor, was against it in totally. Even the Bauchi State governor said, we don't need this. It's a way of making Nigerians to suffer the more at this point in time. Is it that no one is anymore targeting the North? What happened?
Well, thank you very much. I don't think... my worry, first of all, is that I don't know why whenever it comes to issue that borders on money, sharing, etc., the governors become very active. You now find activist governors all over the place. If you look at Nigeria today, most of the governors can, quote Section 162 of the 1999 Constitution and implement those things as quickly as possible, because it concerns issues of sharing, money, etc., as the case may be. But they cannot, some of them don't even know that there's a section in the Constitution, Section 14 sub 2B, that talks about welfare and security. So that is my first worry. Now, you see the heckling and peckling all over the place is because of what they can get for their states and their pockets. Now, let us go to the nitty-gritty of the tax reforms. I don't know why the northern, Nigeria, as we call them, they are getting worried. The reason for me is because they feel that because they have not been contributing, enormously to the purse, so they feel that if some certain things are now reformed, that they will be in a disadvantageous position. Let me quickly run down, a brief, of what the tax reform by President Tinubu is talking about. Any business with less than 50 million turnover exempted from tax payment. That is, for me, it's not a bad policy. Over 90% of workers in public and private sectors will no longer pay income tax. For me, I don't think that is a bad, a policy. 82% of what low-income persons consume will be VAT-free. For me, I don't think that is something that we should go against. The rich to pay more tax than the poor, etc. And let me just run down to where it's where the problem is now coming now. That is where the problem is coming. Where you see people agitating, the governors now say they were against it before. But when these things were now explained to them, to say don't use just one clause about sharing of VAT etc. to destroy the other noble intentions of this tax reform. I think that is the reason why they did a U-turn. Now look at it. If you go through, see, federal government share, that is VAT, how to share VAT, and this is the contentious part that has become an issue between them. You know, VAT to reduce, 15% to 10%, that is, federal government should take 10%. States and local government now to get 90%. So these are the areas that they have been talking, oh, I would not even want the federal government to have, more than 10%. Let states and local government share 90%. So they became very active when it came to this particular issue. Now, one of the reasons why northern Nigeria, as we call them today, had to, first of all, poo-poo the tax reform is because of consumption. That is, you see, that consumption is related to also VAT. Now, consumption tax collected by states will be eliminated. You understand? That is one. It will go. Two is that you find out that the VAT, it's not going to be the VAT calculation will no longer be calculated based on where the companies have their headquarters, but where their goods are consumed. For instance, you find out that in Lagos here, most of the industries or manufacturing, whatever, they are in Lagos here. Now, you see alcohol, for instance. Alcohol is mostly consumed in Lagos and some part of the south here. In the north, for instance, they get VAT from alcohol. They destroy alcohol when it comes to Kanu because of Sharia and all those, whatever as the case may be. So these are some of the reasons why you found that they were kicking against it, and many more that I have here, but time will not allow me to reel out, as the case may be. And so many others. But if they have come together now to say, we have now, the scale has fallen off our eyes, and I want to support the president, for me, I believe it's a plus, for democracy.
Has also changed, all right? Initially, we talked about derivation, has also changed, all right? Initially, we talked about derivation, and certain areas would get more, certain areas like Lagos.
There's still proposal.
This is still a proposal, yes, of course, pending approval.
Yeah.
But in your own, from your own analysis, what would you say, because the president sounded very convinced during the media chat that, look, the tax reform bills have come to stay. Yes, of course, Nigerians are of the opinion that, look, what we practiced before is archaic and should be changed. But what would you say were some of the things that probably prompted this shift from your own analysis?
You recall that when this thing came up, my first reaction was that there was no way that those bills will not be passed. And I also said that most of the people that are just talking, they have not even seen the back cover of those bills. They were just based on sentiments. And if you go back to that intervention, you will see that there was no specification of any area of those 4 bills that is. It was just a blanket statement. No, we are not going to agree. The tax bill cannot see the light of day. And that was it.
They pointed the VAT and how it's going to be shared also to be one of the things that made them to be aggrieved too.
You see, that was the second intervention, not the first. I followed all these things through. I recall there was a time I was sitting with Chukuma around the office, and I saw some aircrafts flying over the roof, and that was the time the president was in Lagos, holidaying in Lagos. I said, these are private jets, and probably from these governors. They have gone to Tinubu to discuss this tax thing, that very soon you will see that this tax will sail through reform bills. Now, you see, I'm always very, very careful in commenting on things that I'm not well grounded on. When you say some of these things, at the end of the day, if it backfires, you look stupid. Most of these people that were the first person that gave a clear
definition of what these people are now following was from one doctor, I think he's of Southeast extraction, that itemized those clauses. I think he listed about 12 or 13, you know, and that gave us a clearer picture, and it gave Nigerians a clearer picture of what this bill intends to achieve. Okay. And it was like a direction to the clueless people that were condemning the bill. And so, at that point, you would also realize that even what they are proposing, what the governors are proposing, is the offshoot of that. Okay, that person's intervention.
I'm sure you're talking about Dr. Nnemeka Obiareri.
Yes,
you know,
yes.
It's Nnemeka. Now, that said, now the president seems to have, can I use the word captured the NGF, that's the Nigerian Governors Forum.
He didn't capture them.
I said, just captured them. He's captured them because they were looking the other way. Now he's turned their face, you know, to himself.
He just showed them superior intellect.
That's capture, you know. Now that he has supposedly, allegedly captured them, do you think it's going to be a free sale in the National Assembly? Because the National Assembly, I mean, the governors don't have a vote in the National Assembly. What do you think? How do you think the whole thing will pan out in the National Assembly?
It's still going to follow the same pattern. Because if you follow through this bill, you will notice that even some of these senators individually are already queuing behind this proposal. And so it's going to, and I'm sure that, you see, there's something called lobby now in democracy. And I'm sure that would have gone very far in this discussion. And I am sure that when it gets to the National Assembly, some of these governors also have influence over their senators.
Exactly. I say that in the light of the fact that beyond, the governors were not even stiff in rejecting the tax reform bills. The major opposition came from the members of the National Assembly. Ali Ndume, northern senators, northern members of House of Rep. Do you think that the president is also going to call them in and do a reversal to shift their face?
That's why you have legislative aides in the presidency.
So how would that speak to the independent? I mean, if there can be influencing, how does the executive influence legislatures? Like we see happening in Nigeria, when our Senate president tells you that, look, anything that the president brings here is as good as is a done deal. I'm trying to find out the influence the executive has on our legislature.
See, when you look at influence, you don't look at influence from the negative perspective.
Okay.
But in other climes, it is based on superior arguments.
All right.
And letting people see through what they are saying. But in this case, I am not part of the National Assembly, and I'm not part of the executive.
Okay.
From all indications, for anybody to shift ground, there must be dialogue.
Okay.
Dialogue that may include what you are expecting that is likely to have happened.
Barrister was shaking his head. I think he has a reaction.
I understand clearly what Chukwuma Okoro is saying here. That is the extenuating influence of the executive over the legislature in this case. Now, governors have said, no problem. They might be mounting it, but in their inner conscience, what we call unkruga, that is in my language, they say a different now. Because the legislature, National Assembly has the power to pass. But the governors can say, okay, we approve, but they go underground and tell those who are from the area, don't follow, don't. When they say yes or no, say no. You understand? They have that influence to, doctor members of the National Assembly. And Barrow is going to happen that the governors are going to work, especially the northern areas, to veto that bill and filibuster this particular tax reform bill that will make the executive Tinubu maybe helpless and now use his veto powers. Now, let me give you, for example, quickly. Are you aware that the present sharing formula that we have, that they are kicking against, and I believe they will not allow anybody to change it, is this: equality of states, 50% is shared. All states are equal, yes. They now set aside 50% of 1 billion ETC for all the states to share. Now, population, 30%.
Now, doesn't that benefit everybody?
No, population does not. Equality may benefit, but population does not. Because Kano has population in terms of whatever than Lagos, that we know that Lagos is about 25 million or 30 million people.
So you think?
But Kano has even 44 local governments. So they are going to share. Then you now go to derivation.
Now, from your explanation,
Yes.
doesn't this now benefit the North that were against it initially?
That is the present one. I'm reading to you the present one.
I know, yes.
Derivation is
20%.
20%.
20%, yes.
So they are happy. So what you produce, you get 20%. No problem, because they know that 50% equality will help them, 30% population will help them because they have more. Now look at it. The proposed one that they are against, the proposed one that you see this heckling now is the proposed new sharing formula. Equality, it's now 20% instead of 50. Now you now see population. Population instead of 30 now has 20. Then derivation is where the problem is now 60%.
No, that was the previous one.
No, I'm telling you,
that's what is embedded in the
new bill.
That's the previous
the current
one. They keep people were now speculating. I get my point now. They were not speculating. So
what Barrister Steve is trying to tell you is that the status quo favors the North.
The North
now.
Yes.
Now.
That is.
But if that bill is passed, if the current bill is
for instance, as it is, it favors them.
Yes, I propose.
Let me give for an example. I'm sorry. Let me give for an example. I speak statistics. I didn't manufacture all these things. I know. Look at it. For instance, a state like Katsina State. Last month also, they contributed 1.68 billion to VAT. I get my point. To the VAT pause, but received 7.27 billion from the VAT pause based on the present calculation. Then you go to look at Delta State. They contributed 13.09 billion to VAT pause, but received 7.72 billion. So now, where is the balance? You understand?
So with this analysis now,
yes,
the North seems to be getting more. Those that have been against it initially. So now, are you saying if there will be a rejection or a pushback, where will it come from? Will it come from places like Lagos and Benin and other states?
The senators or House of Rep members that have always been against this particular new tax reform are not from the southern part of Nigeria. So it might end up
by God's grace this year, 2025, Nigeria will have another census. And we pray that this census that was going to be conducted this year is going to be on free and fair basis.
It can never be free.
The only problem
my question is this.
Our argument about these things is we end up submitting to God in all things.
No, with God, all things are possible.
It can
even the US says in God we trust. It's there as the old mantra. But now the thing is now, but Barrister Asim, if you were to go through this, the way you've just analyzed this, the former VAT sharing formula and what is being proposed now. Now, don't you think that this is also going to raise the dust? If, for example, finally we have the 50% based on equality and all that, if it is being accepted, raise the dust for the southern senators in the House to kick again. Tax reform deal is not going to die down anytime soon.
It's not going to die down. You see, anything that has to do with, let me tell you, I read an article written by a youthful organization, and they call their names Northern Wanting Youth Organization. If you look at what the labyrinths or what they were all saying, was that President Tinubu, he is trying to use this to hoodwink Nigerians and bring Nigeria back to regionalism and the era of derivation that was our pre or post-independence, First Republic, whatever. That is using this tax reform to now go back to where derivation formula held sway. And they went for that. You see, in their own analysis, what I read, they now went for that to analyze. And somebody countered and said, yes, derivation in the Southeast. The Southeast has become more impoverished right now because derivation is not there. But when derivation was in place, the Southeast was a hub That is where you could see that even River State became, the President Hotel that is River State today was as a result of, derivation. Because they had pancane, rubber, what's it called, coal, etc. Okay. So they could progress and do a lot of things. But now they can't even move forward, as the case may be. So they are so scared. That is why you see that they are so scared that if this particular reforms go through, it's going to affect them. How do we reverse it? That is where the problem is. So our senators and our reps must, hold their ground. Okay. And not based on whatever sentiment, but I'm just trying to say what the facts are.
All right, Barrister Asim, I want us to speak a little bit of constitutional law and politics now. Based on the premise you raised, if the president eventually gets to, if the bill gets to, as it is in the National Assembly, yes, if it hits the wall, how do you think the president can work around it to ensure that it gets passed as an act of parliament? I mean, I'm talking in terms of his power to veto, his power to, can he go through executive, what do they call it again? This thing that doesn't have to pass through parliament.
Executive bill. Executive bill?
It's not
executive order.
Executive order. Can he go through the process of executive order?
No.
He cannot.
He cannot.
Okay, so if he meets a brick wall, how do you
say when he hit the brick wall?
Yes.
Now, when he does hit the brick wall, now look at where the problem is going to be. If the people are able to pass to the president for his assent, and the president, says, I will not assent or I will assent, because they might amend one or two things ahead. Okay. Then he says, I am not going to do that. He has to take it back to the House again for them to represent it, as the case may be. But my fear is that they might not even allow this bill now to go to the, is it third reading they call it? There might be third reading they call it. There might be fiasco in the House, where you find out that when you present this bill for debate on a particular day on plenary, there might be fisticuffs. Okay. We have seen that happen in the First Republic. You understand the point? Where this man from Delta State in the part of Western region snatched the mace when argument was on floor, and he didn't like the motion that was being moved that led to that particular collapse of that First Republic. Omagege and the rest of them. Now you find out that you have people like that. They might create problem, and when they are not able to pass, it's not able to pass from first to second reading or to the third reading. The president will not have access, of asset or whatever.
Yes. I think we are getting some education here, at least our viewer.
Yes.
My question is, if it doesn't get to the committee stage, if it doesn't pass through second reading, at what point is there a time limit within which the president can represent it? And how many times can he represent it? And eventually, if the Constitution allows him to represent it 3 times, and on those 3 occasions he failed, what is the next available option for him to use?
Well, the next available option is he cannot override the Constitution. Okay. The Constitution has given that when you present 1, 2, 3, etc. as the case may be, you can't go outside of the Constitution. So what will now happen is that you do it first time, second time, then you wait. Don't present the third time. Try and do lobbying. You understand? Then give some time. I've seen situations, for instance, you see what happened. This particular law on cyber something stalking a crime or cyber act. When they brought it, first of all, there was this rancor everywhere. You know what they did? They just allowed it to cool down. They allowed the bill. They put it in the freezer, in the legislative cooler. They kept it there, and they were not doing other things. Then when people took their minds off it, somebody now, surreptitiously, floated the bill somewhere. And before automatically passed through, second and third reading. And the next thing we saw was that it now became an act. The same thing with the Petroleum Industry Act, which is that Petroleum Industry Bill. You can see that when people find that, especially those who were against it, find that it was going to benefit a certain part of the country, vote against that.
It is not just the Northerners or the Northern senators that are having issues with these tax reform bills. We also have ASU. Northerners or the Northern senators that are having issues with these tax reform bills. We also have ASU calling on Nigerians to reject the issue of TED fund and all that. And also it made it to, to this particular thing we're talking about today, how even the governors have talked about, the clause saying that there will not be terminal clause for Tertiary Education Trust Fund, that's TET Fund, National Agency for Science and Engineering Infrastructure, and even the National Information Technology Development in sharing development levies in the bills. Now, what does this really portend if finally we allow, or rather, if finally this whole proposal, pass through? How do you think maybe the likes of ASU will react to this, and other bodies have been talking about this tax reform bills?
ASU is a pressure group.
Yeah.
Well, I do believe that the bills, according to the conversation, according to the meeting held yesterday, they have rescinded the intention to expunge TET fund, and yes, they've rescinded that decision, and that's where the presidency,
That's the governor.
The presidency shifted ground on that regard. But, well, you might just react to, the question asked. But then, I do believe they've shifted grounds quite a lot.
I'm not even particular about either it's going to be shut down or not. But, you see, when issues like this come up, we need to interrogate the merit and the demerit of issues like this. You see, at some point, development levy is 1% of the total income of corporations operating within the country. And over time, these monies had been paid into the coffers of the federal government, which is distributed to these particular agencies, TET funds, NITDA, and all the rest. But that was just for takeoff. It was expected by the policies enunciated before these things came up that over time it would have grown to a level that it may not require federal government's intervention to move on. But if you have a child and at 25, 30 is still crying for feeder, then it is either you put a stop to that feeder or you continue to tolerate and indulge that child. So if government is now saying NITDA is supposed to generate resources and give back, just like before Oloyede came to JAMB, whoever believed that JAMB could make excess money and return some back to the purse of the federal government. Somebody was there for more than 8 years and he was still crying to government that the resources at our disposal is not even enough to conduct examinations. But somebody came and within 1 year declared a surplus of about 3 billion. As at last year, it declared about 8-point-something billion excess. So that is to tell you that if government is saying that these people enough of feeding bottle for these agencies, it knows what it's talking about.
Let's look at our educational system and the sector, the way it works and the way it operates. Nigerian governments come up with no more out-of-school children to start with. And then we'll bring it back to the Judiciary Board. Yes, they will say there's a room for loan, student loan. But as the case may be now, looking at Nigeria, the way our economy is and how parents are kind of, trying their best to make sure they put food on the table and all that, there's no grant. Other people are talking about educational grants. Nigeria is talking about loan. Now, if we're to say that we are taking away this TET fund, because we believe that a tertiary institution must have been bold and old enough to take care of themselves, how will the students be able to, get themselves back to school and run around and finish the school? Remember, there's no guaranteed job even when you're done schooling.
Now, let me tell you first, you are aware that TET fund was basically for infrastructure, and not payment or subsidizing school fees.
Yes.
Now, do you know that out of 36 states of this country, only about 7 have been able to access TET funds in the last 2-3 years? Why? Because you must remit proper accounts of the previous year before you can access the current year. And you also have to pay counterpart funds. The states, do you know that most states can't account for the money that was given to them?
Are you talking about Tech Fund or Subeb?
Yes, Tech Fund. Go and find out.
It's part
No,
of
Tech
Subeb.
Fund.
Tech Fund is for tertiary institutions, infrastructural development. That's Tech Fund.
I'm just asking, states, do they have anything to do with Tech Fund or the universities?
What I mean is, some of the state universities access this money, apart from federal universities.
Okay.
And most states that should have accessed this money, federal government institutions are betrothed to federal government. But states, even polytechnics, I know in Oyo State, they have not been able to remit proper accounting for them to access current one for last year.
You know what I'm asking, Mr. Fani? Why I asked this question is the fact
It's
that I
different.
thought that while I was in school,
You see,
it was the help of Tech Fund that, we have some theaters
Exactly.
for people to go to class and all that.
Exactly.
Because also we're talking about how we're
Renovating
having, buildings that are no longer working, where we have LTs that are not even working, that students can't even see what is happening and all that. But Tech Fund, aid was being provided for the students who are in school. So pulling it out now.
No, Tech Fund is
can
not
they
going to
run
be
it?
pulled out. I was talking about NITDA
Okay,
and other
NITDA.
agencies. But Tech Fund is basically to improve on infrastructure in campuses.
Yeah.
States, the only exemption is private universities and polytechnics. They are not allowed to access Tech Funds. Now, if over the years you have this kind of problems across the states, is it not southern governors, southern states, that they have not been accessing this money, whereas massively the northerners are accessing it? Is it the fault of that agency if we decide to neglect that? Most times, when people talk about grants and monies given by federal government, we cry here, we don't get to see people who access it. Why are the northerners accessing it and we are not accessing it? It shows our lackadaisical attitude. And who is going to be blamed? It is not the government that provided this money. So, for me, Tech Fund can remain. Tech Fund should remain because the agency is doing a good job. And governments across the states and government universities that are federal institutions should also live up to their billing, because corruption has seeped into Tech Fund's money that is released to some of these institutions, that even in some universities, ASU and VC, they are fighting over this Tech Fund money. Because today, vice chancellors on campus, if you see them, you think they are governors. They now go in convoy. And where are they getting this money from? It is through all these agencies that are intervening through grants.
All right, thank you so much for
I
that.
think ASU or whatever they call them has a different view about, how they know the reason why they are against, that being implemented. Because I remember we had a chart then in River State with the Uniport ASU chairman who broke down some of these things. That what they are looking at, when you talk about Tech Fund, ETC, all these funds, things, and whatever, coming to universities, assessing it is very difficult. Talking about development. Nobody talks about, provision for research and, other things for the lecturers who are teaching the students. That a lecturer who has his PhD about 30 years ago or thereabout has not gone far to go and refresh his memory and, go out for sabbatical and do some other things. Then you just keep him there, slaughter their academic advancement, the authors of infrastructural development. Now, university is not just all about
the
infrastructure, but about the intellectual, property that, obtained. So I think that is the valid argument they are trying to get, that provisions should be made. It's government by the majority. But I have said that democracy said is government by the majority, which we practice. That is why you find that whoever scores the highest number of votes, even if he gets those votes from foolish people and people who are not in line, he becomes the governor or the president. So when they say democracy is based on the majority rule. I am asking, if the majority, for instance, are foolish people, does that mean that because they voted and they say this is what should not be or should be, then it becomes, because of democracy, it will just pass through hook, line, and sink? That is a valid question we have asked. But in this particular case, I have examined this. I am not a fan of this particular administration, but for this particular tax reform, bill before the House, I am in support. And we have so many other people who are in support of it. So if the president, what he needs to do is to whip up sentiments and lobby both the masses and those in the National Assembly, lobby them and see if we can get a majority, a consent for him to go through. And majority comes because we submitted all our powers, to our people who are representing us in the House of Reps and Senate. So if we can get 2/3 majority of those people in the two chambers of this thing, it means that he has represented us and maybe the bill will go through. So he has to do a lot of lobbying. It's not going to be through force or extra constitutional means. No. Lobbying is allowed in politics and democracy. Lobby Nigerians, talk to them, sell this idea to them, let it be that it permeates our conscience and our consciousness. Then you now go to the National Assembly. I'm very sure it will go through.
All right, thank you very much, Barrister. Now, let me come to you. The whole idea of these tax reform bills, if you examine it properly, I think it speaks to what we have been clamoring for, fiscal federalism. It also speaks to the fact that, look, the president is currently trying to redistribute resources and income. Nobody knows what will happen next after now. It could be, we could be talking about resource control. Now, my question is, the North is kicking because of these tax reform bills. And largely, the North has also come out to say, look, it is targeted at the North. Ndume said that the president wants Lagos to colonize the North and all of that. I want us to put it in the purview, in the perspective of 2027. It's a good thing. A lot of people from the South, even some Northerners, agree that, look, it is something that should be done for justice and equity. Now, the president seems to be somebody who is taking bold steps. In this instance, do you think that he was a little too forward? Don't you think that this is something he could have done in his second term when he is not going to seek for re-election, as he is wont to do in 2027? Is he trying to move faster than his shadow? I mean, he has a lot in his basket at the same time. State police, regional development commissions, local government autonomy, tax reform bills, and all of that. How is it good policy and good politics? Which one is it for him?
Let me start by recalling when Fashola came into government in Lagos State. He took some bold steps. Okay. And I was close to Alausa then, and I was reporting. At some point, some people were threatening. He will come for the second time. He has done this to undermine us, to make us suffer. But when it was time, Fashola had a coalition with the powers that be, that at some point, the same people came forcefully to say, if they won't allow you to contest in AC, okay, come to any other party. Okay, we'll vote for you.
I'm happy you said it. You know you almost lost the second term.
What I'm saying is, they told the powers that be, that felt that they own Lagos, that look, go ahead and take any ticket from any party. Because you have done so well, we will vote for you and return you. Okay. And that was a veritable threat that they had to acquiesce and give him that party ticket to return the second time.
All right.
What I'm saying in essence is, anybody that wants to be seen as a statesman, that's a nationalist, at any point in time, if he feels that what he is going to do will serve him in posterity, why wouldn't that person go ahead and do it?
Okay.
Regardless of if he's coming back the second time or not. But it will be recorded against him that he took the bullet for Nigerians.
All right, then.
And in the course of doing that, he would be recorded on the right side of history rather than play politics. This was the undoing of Jonathan. Jonathan at some point felt that because they were threatening him that they won't vote him the second time, he was pandering to the northerners, and he was building Almajiri schools for a group of people that they don't even want anybody to migrate from that class to another class. And it turned out to be his nemesis. So if Tinubu says he wants to put through all these things before he ends his first term, and eventually he pulls them through, and Nigerians are seeing it, let him not go for second term. It will be recorded against him that he has done something.
Okay.
So in other words,
and this regionalism that we're talking about, who is afraid of regionalism? Why are these governors lazy?
So no,
why can't they hold their base and let we amend that constitution that gives exclusive right to federal government over state resources, and let the regions develop? There was a time that rubber, cocoa, timber, coal were the mainstay of the southeast. Cocoa was the mainstay of the southwest. And look at the monuments that were built at that time. There was no oil in this country.
Governors are lazy.
They are lazy because they go to Abuja to share money. The same thing Okojo-Iweala warned them. Okojo-Iweala warned them that this excess crude front, let's not spend it, let's keep it for the rainy day. But they twisted the governor, the president at that time, and make sure they share that money. And that is the result of what we are facing today.
I absolutely understand your point. But don't you think that if there was no way of sharing monies, the governors would not develop their states, seeing that resources are deposited in all the states of Nigeria? Don't you think that they will develop pretty well?
If there is no sharing in Abuja, states will develop more than this.
So whose fault is it? Is it the governors?
It's the fault of the Constitution. It's the fault of the Constitution that makes it all these resources exclusive. Let me tell you, if states superintend over their resources, Zamfara will not allow the so-called bandits to mine illegally in that place. They will protect it because they know that if they don't protect it and get money from that resource embedded in them, then they will suffer.
All right.
But today, they know that either they protect it or not. They know that something is coming from Abuja.
Oh, well, there's more to the conversation, and we'll probably delve into it another time. But in the meantime, let's look at another conversation now. Nnamdi Kanu'S trial says there is an unholy alliance between the Nigerian government's prosecution team and the judiciary. Let's x-ray this when we come back.
All right, there. Welcome back, and thanks for staying with us. Now, Nnamdi Kanu, the leader of the indigenous people of Biafra, IPOB, has offered a 1 million naira reward to any Nigerian law student who can find a judicial precedent where a Nigerian judge granted a stay of execution in a criminal case involving an acquitted defendant. The IPOB leader made the pledge following a stay of execution granted to the Nigerian government in October 2022 by Justice Haruna Samani of the Appeal Court on a judgment which was also delivered by Appeal Court judges, which set Khan free and acquitted him of charges of terrorism and treasonable felony against him. According to the IPOB leader's legal team, throughout the period of what they described as a mock trial before Justice Binta Nyarko of the Federal High Court and the Court of Appeal, no decision of the courts touched on the merits of the case. A three-man panel of justices of Appeal Court had held that extraordinary rendition of Kanu by the Nigerian government without adherence to due process of the law was a gross violation of all international conventions. treaties, protocols, and guidelines that Nigeria is a signatory to, as well as the breach of the appellant's fundamental human rights. The legal team of the detained leader of the indigenous people of Biafra, Nnamdi Kanu, led by his special counsel, Barrister Aloy Ejimako, has alleged that there is an unholy alliance between the Nigerian government prosecution and the judiciary on Kanu's terrorism treasonable felony trial. Kanu, who has been detained by the Department of State Services, DSS, since 2021, on a terrorism charge, made the announcement through his legal team. Oh, well, we still have in the studio here Barrister Asim Adam, a lawyer and a political affairs commentator. We also have Mr. Dele Fanimo, who is a seasoned reporter and VOP in-house analyst. Gentlemen, thanks for staying with us.
Thank you very much.
Barrister Adam, this falls within your forte. Let's speak law before we now get into the politics of everything. Now, Nnamdi Kanu is offering a 1 million naira reward to any law student. I don't know why he restricted it to law students. He didn't include lawyers, you know, because lawyers are the ones who understand precedents and all of that, referring to, and in the other section of section this and that. Why is he asking for, you know, a precedent? Is it clear to him that there is none in our legal books, in our statute books? I want to find out from you. And can you walk us through what actually led to him asking for a precedent to defend his case?
Excuse me. You know, I understand the feelings of Nnamdi Kanu and his camp. I also understand the feelings of his supporters and those who are for him and his legal team. You know, we are lawyers. In our various matters, etc., as the case may be, we express sentiments, some real, some not real. It is trials, like Nnamdi Kanu's case. It reminds me, or reminded me of, you know, the trial of Kenule Sarowiwa, otherwise known as Ken Sarowiwa. In 1995, I was just a very young lawyer, just leaving the law school some years. So I followed that particular trial of Ken Sarowiwa with emotions. And I found out where I wept that day was the day Gani Fawayemi, the legendary Gani Fawayemi, wept in front of that panel or tribunal and withdrew his services for Ken Sarowiwa. That tribunal later went on to convict and sentence him to death by hanging in what is already regarded as the Ogoni 9, debacle. A lot of things went on. It was a similar trial, convoluted, just like the one you have with Nnamdi Kanu. Now, in the case of Nnamdi Kanu's trial has been convoluted. For me, it's been nauseating anyway. And I can feel his pulse. I can feel the pulse of the lawyers who are working for him. Now, the question he asked is that whether is it stay of execution also, whether it will apply, where somebody has been, discharged but not acquitted, or discharged and acquitted by, the Court of Appeal. Now, you see, we in our legal, jurisprudence, criminal one for that matter, we have precedents. We have, a road. Let me use the word, a road that we have to follow. We have laws, guiding. Now, an armed robber has been executed. Has been found guilty. I'm not talking about Nnamdi Kanu for this. I'm using for an example. The lower court found, and maybe an armed robber should be set free. The armed robber has been discharged. But the moment the person, they have to fulfill formalities of his being taken out of prison or from that courtroom, you now see the other party, drop a notice, either of appeal against that particular judgment, accompanying that notice of appeal is a stay of execution of that particular judgment that was given, by the lower court. You understand? Our president allows that. So if you are able to move the appellate court to stay execution of what that particular lower court gave, pending whatever, that other person will remain in that status quo as a man that has been, discharged, but has not gotten his freedom, pending the appeal before the appellate court. But in this case of Kanu'S, I have not really read, the submission of his lawyers, whether it was an appeal. There was a notice of appeal by the federal government to the Supreme Court, appealing or trying to notify that they are going to appeal the discharge of Nnamdi Kanu, and now asking that that particular order given should be stayed. They have the right to do that under our legal jurisprudence. It is a right that is intrinsic in all parties to a suit, whether it is federal government or anybody at all, as case may be. They have the right, to file that notice of appeal and, get a stay. If the court grants a stay, then it goes. A stay of execution can be brought before the particular court that gave that order. To stay that particular order, the court can give that order. If the court refuses to give that order of stay of execution of a particular judgment they give, then you go to the appellate court, which is the court of appeal. And if that is given, I think it's...
let me stay with you. I'm not a lawyer, but I also understand some of these procedures. And I know what happened in this case. Now, Nnamdi Kanu was renditioned from Kenya and brought to Nigeria here. They sent him to court, I think, how many count charges? I can't recall.
There are so many.
There are so many of them. But what happened? It was not, I'm not sure it was an issue of withdrawing and bringing more. What happened was that at the appeal court, the court clearly said that, look, Nnamdi has no case to answer. Because in the first place, he was illegally renditioned, brought back to Nigeria against international treaties, conventions, to which Nigeria is a signatory to. Now they discharged him. Instead of the court to release him, instead of the DSS or prison, the custody where he was to release him, federal government didn't allow that. They now brought fresh charges against him. So I want us to understand, is that allowed? Because it had been discharged based on the charges that were filed against him. The court said he had no case to answer. But the federal government, through the Attorney General, now slammed fresh charges on him, even before releasing him. Is that proper within the legal spectrum?
Well, we are on national television. I think what we need to do is that before I can answer that, I need to get my facts very correct on the issue of Nnamdi Kanu discharge. Because there are two things involved here. Being discharged is different from being discharged and acquitted. I don't know if you understand.
Yes, I do.
Now, if you are discharged and acquitted, you understand the point now? You are supposed to go. Then it's an appeal that the other party can go to. That is, the state can go to now to reverse that particular judgment. Now, if you have been discharged but not acquitted, I don't know if you are getting me. If you have been discharged but not acquitted, the state can still prefer charges against you. You understand? That is what they did in the scenario you gave. You understand? I don't know if that is what applied in the Nnamdi Kanu's case. If you are discharged, they should get me very clearly. If you are discharged but not in a criminal case, for you to go home and go and sleep with your two eyes closed, you have to be discharged and acquitted. But the court will say you have been discharged. And when they say you have been discharged, it's either the procedures that the police or the prosecuting authority followed were incongruent with the law. So that is what we call technicalities. The court will say, no, police, because of the fact that you did not issue a warrant of arrest or search when you went to that man's house or you arrested him, the offense prescribed that for you to arrest him, you have to issue a warrant of arrest before you can arrest. But before us, we don't see anything like that. So based on that, the lawyer has raised valid point on section this, that, as the case may be. Based on what the lawyer has raised, you have been discharged. But that does not mean that you didn't commit the offense that you've been brought to court for. You are being discharged because of technicalities in the sense that they didn't follow due process. Let me use the word due process to bring you before us. You understand? So, but when the case is gone through its merit and gamut without technicalities, and they now say, you committed this offense, it means that, or you didn't commit this offense. The court will say, please discharge and acquit this guy. Discharge, acquit, free of all those offenses. And once you have been acquitted, of any offense, when you be discharged and acquitted of any particular offense, they cannot bring fresh charges bordering on the same charges that you have been acquitted of. You understand the point now? So these are things that are very, very clear. They are very technical explanations that we need to let people know. So in the Nnamdi Kanu'S case, that's why I said I need to, because when you brought up this topic now, I cannot make an informed opinion on, periscoping Nnamdi Kanu'S case, what happened in his case, and why the lawyer had to raise this particular, voice right now. Now, I will look at it and maybe come back, but I'm looking at law generally. That in the case of Nnamdi Kanu, was he discharged and acquitted? These are the questions I want to ask. Okay. If he has been discharged and acquitted, it then means that no particular authority can bring fresh charges against Nnamdi Kanu in that particular case. They can only go on appeal.
All right.
Do what now? Arrest that particular, judgment that was given in favor of Nnamdi Kanu. Okay. But if he was discharged, and he was discharged, and say he has been discharged, as he's leaving we have seen it happen.
They will arrest him.
As he's leaving the court premises, and it has happened a number of times before me. Well, a stay of execution. A stay of execution has a, kind of, it's not an infinite, life span. You know that, let me give you an example now. If I get a stay of execution of a particular action, I have to quickly run to court. We don't waste time. As lawyers, you have to, once I get a judgment again, in fact, when we are going to court, we begin to prepare our notice of appeal and, stay, alongside motion for stay of execution in case that matter goes against, the judgment goes against us. So we now find out that the moment they realize the judgment and we find out that, we are not satisfied with what the lower court gave, we just quickly file our notice of appeal and file our stay alongside ETC, as the case may be. Now, like I said, I can file my stay in the same court that gave, that particular judgment. Maybe it's a high court, I can file that particular stay before that particular high court while I do my notice of appeal, ETC, as the case may be. Okay. If they reject that particular motion for stay, then I have the right to go to the court of appeal to obtain a stay of execution of that particular judgment until that particular stay is granted, either by that court that gave that judgment or the appellate court. Until it is granted, I have the right to do whatever I move around. If, for instance, I'm a criminal or maybe we have the land matter, I have the right, to move. Something happened yesterday at the Federal High Court where I was. A particular judge gave a stay of execution of a judgment that was before it. What happened was that during the pendency of that particular, immediately they got that particular order, stay execution, what the people did, they had to go and demolish and all those things. Okay. You understand? So they took that act and the court frowned at it and said, why? The law was said, no, if you have stayed the execution of judgment as the case may be, I have the right to do anything I want to do on that. So it was a technical a kind of argument. So in this Nnamdi Kanu's case, let us be very careful. We need to be and be seized of facts, before we take or make an informed position on it. Okay. As the case, I read the body of this thing, but I have not really gone to read, the facts and the judgment of court, pertaining to Nnamdi Kanu. People keep saying he has been discharged. Being discharged does not mean that you are free of the charges that the government also have or the allegations against you. You must have these two together. Yes.
But Mr. Asim, it was in October 22, and the case was And the appeal court was decided by Justice Haruna Sama.
Okay.
You know, clearly, Nnamdi Kanu was discharged and acquitted.
He was discharged and acquitted?
And acquitted.
Is there on record?
Yeah, it's on record.
Okay.
But what eventually happened is that, look, the government slammed fresh charges on him. You know, now, I want to ask you, Dele, does it look like, Nnamdi said that there is some kind of unholy alliance between the Nigerian government and the judiciary? If, based on the explanation given by Barrister Asim, do you see some kind of politics in I'm not talking about the politics of the Nnamdi Kanu, his detention and all of that. Does it look like there's politics in his prosecution, in the process of prosecution, based on what the barrister explained?
Well, I'm being a little bit circumspect here.
Okay.
Because I am not a lawyer.
Okay.
And I don't understand law as much as
the barrister.
A barrister. But you see, even in our various zones, even when we are taking decisions, there is a political twist to our decisions. Even in our home, we play politics with our children.
Even in workplaces.
Even in workplaces, there is high-tech politics in workplaces.
High wire.
Yeah. So, to this extent, I will say that, of course, there could be political undertone to all this. But the point is, in the chessboard, the game is always who holds the trump card. And who holds the trump card would want to use it maximally. And in the course of doing this, there's always an interplay of politics. So, for me, you can't rule out that. And Buhari was in the saddle when he was picked, and he may have his own intention for picking him. And now it's been inherited by Tinubu. So, but the point I want to make outside of the courtroom is that that statement couldn't have been, you know, that statement, for me, we wouldn't sit down with some lawyers. If you have sons prosecuted your case, you are now giving 1 million naira to law students, it shows you have lost confidence in those lawyers.
But now, Mr.
By implication.
Mr. Fanimo, the way this whole matter has been going all this while, the back and forth by the federal government and all that, even, you know, when he was discharged and all that, and how it's moving with Binta Nyako issuing, recusing herself from the case, and federal government bringing her back to the particular case. She says she's not interested in anymore and all that. Don't you think it's high time, you know, we spread the tentacles, or rather, Nnamdi Kanu and his counsel, you know, spread the tentacles to know if there are things that they are not aware of that other persons might know. The way the case is going.
It should have been in the realm of law students. Should have been in the realm of lawyers.
Okay. Before we run out of time, I want to pose this question to Barrister Asim Adams, and let's also correct the assertion. Nnamdi Kanu was discharged, not acquitted. Just to correct that.
Yes.
Now, in a situation where a judge recuses himself from a case and says, look, I'm stepping aside. Can and should that judge be compelled to still sit over that case? And if that happens, what could be the modalities for such compulsion?
The moment a judge recuses, you know, himself or herself from a case, that should be obeyed. That is the decision. That discretion should be valid and obeyed.
Okay.
But if the CJ failed, because I've seen situations where you see the judge will say, no, I'm recusing myself based on petitions that have been written against. I don't want my hands stained. But the NJC or whoever the petition was sent to will go through the petition and say, no, we don't see anything in this. This is just mere whatever the case may be. You are still going to continue with the matter. Because they don't see anything that is biased or impartial that you are going to display.
So that judge can be compelled.
You understand? So the judge, it's another given to the judge by the CJ. The CJ is the head of, you know, the judicature as the case may be. So if he says, you have to do this, there's a petition. Why do you want to recuse yourself? Say because, oh, the person on the other side is my relation, they will say, okay, no problem.
Okay.
But where a petition is written against a judge that he has to recuse herself, and the judge now says, based on this petition, I think I don't want any controversy here. I am recusing myself. He now sends the file to the registrar to send to the CJ for reassignment. The CJ might sit in and say, no, you are the proper person for this particular whatever as case may be. I don't think this petition, whatever it says, has any value.
So in the case
you understand?
of Nnamdi Kanu, which is playing out now?
Now, for me, that's why I said, the Nnamdi Kanu's case, see, we have to be very careful. You understand, and analyzing the case, because we are on a national television. Yeah. Now, why am I saying that? And I have said before that from day one, if we follow what the technicalities of law is all about, Nnamdi Kanu ought not to be tried in the first instance. Or even if he's tried, he ought not to still be in custody or whatever by now. It's either you have sentenced or convicted him and sentenced him to how many years or whatever as case may be, or he walks free as a free man. But our judicial system grinds slowly, even slower, like the Russian locomotive. You understand the point? And so, because of that, you find out that a matter has come before this. He goes up and down and all these things. Before you know, people begin to think so many things. I want to give for an example. My chambers in Lagos here, we have about 7 cases before the Supreme Court. As I speak with you, we have not even gotten a date. And you find out that these people, the litigants who are there, for years they have been waiting. When you come, they say, we have not, Supreme Court has not given us a date, wait for us. They begin to get tired of the system as the case may be. It's the same thing. The reason why you are seeing these speculations here and there about Nnamdi Kanu's case is because of the fact that the matter has lingered for too long. It has become a convoluted, legal trial, as the case may be. So now, like I explained before, if Nnamdi Kanu was discharged, the layman will go to the city and say he has been released free to go. Technically speaking, yes, he can move on. But he may get to his house and the next day they pick him up again. You understand? Yes. And say, no, we have brought fresh whatever against it. They take him to court again. He begins another trial, a new one again. But if a court now looks at the case on its merits, he now says, no, this man did not commit this. He has been discharged this man and acquit him. Okay. The state, I'm making it pass because people
cannot try him on that same case again.
The state cannot bring fresh charges against him having been discharged and acquitted. They can only appeal against that particular acquittal and discharge.
Thanks for
so they will bring this thing is anathema. If that is what happened in the case that he has been discharged and acquitted, which I can't say for now, and they now say they are bringing.
We are saying that he was discharged, not acquitted.
He was discharged, not acquitted. So the state can still bring
because of time. Because of time. Before we take, as you wrap up with your concluding thoughts on this one, let's move away from Nnamdi Kanu, but still stay within the polity. Let's go to Edo State. What's happening in Edo State? We hear that the PDP house that was once an AP
and flux nature of imperial politics and vindictive politics that play out, and politics of what I call the Obiageli kind of politics, come and eat, kind of.
Barrister, you have 1 more minute. Barrister, you have 1 more minute.
By a governor say, I'm not going to inaugurate, or whatever happened, he inaugurated about 6 or 9 who were loyal to him in the 9 and left the rest. And about 14 of them they did nothing for 4-8 years or whatever he was in power. And we were disenfranchised. And my area was denied, probable representation. The same thing happened. He went away with it. House of Assembly, they put the roof, did everything. He set a bad precedent. Now this governor now came. So the only tool the governor or executive can use against legislature is to try to impeach principal officers of the house. He will force them, lobby them to impeach the person if he's not loyal. Then, when money comes in, loyalty comes. Every man has a price. You see people talk to say, you know, money talk and bullshit walk. You understand the point? Now, when money talk,
let's be careful.
I'm so sorry. When money talk, you know, people walk.
Crowd can walk.
They can walk. When money talk, people will walk. They will be walking. And when walking means is that you be running, you see people queuing and running to that money area.
But the usage of thugs now to retake that PDP secretariat.
Edo State, look at our governors. You know, look at the morphology and physiology of our governors. They used to say, Edo State have I'm sorry to use the word, that the most ugly governors come from Edo State, especially when they talk about statistics or whatever, that the most ugly governors come from Edo State. They are hard men, as they call them, open and close.
To realize also that the appeal court actually the appeal court actually discharged and acquitted Nnamdi Kanu. That it was the Supreme Court
that discharged him?
No. Okay. So with all of this information, you need to go back home, come back and inform everybody. Being that you are a lawyer and you understand these things better than
the Supreme Court. If the Supreme Court did that, they had the right. They know the reason why they did that. They have the right to, quash and that override the appeal court.
Okay. Now,
it's unfortunate.
Can we have their conclusion?
The only thing I want to say is this, and I want to say with due respect on Nnamdi Kanu's case, that it's something that becomes so, funny to us. The authorities should look at this. Look at the man that is involved. Listen to your conscience. Please, I want the president of Nigeria to behave the way a man called Shehu Shagari did in 1983 or thereabout. Even people say it's political reasons, no problem. That was what brought him back to Nigeria. And we saw how he was received and how Nigeria moved on in unity.
Lawyers always have something to say.
That's right. So let them release Nnamdi.
Don't say more.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Quickly, if you can, in 1 minute, please, their concluding thoughts.
The tax reform bills should be passed for the benefit of Nigerians.
Okay.
Nnamdi Kanu, I would has always said that we have to use political solution to this crisis.
All right,
solution.
Oh, well, that's how far we can go on this conversation. Quite interesting, very insightful and very profound. Oh, well, we've been speaking with two gentlemen, Barrister Asim Adams, who is a lawyer and political affairs commentator. We also had Mr. Dele Fanimo. Dele is a seasoned reporter and VOP in-house analyst. Gentlemen, thanks for coming on this show.
Thank you. And
for me here, Chukwuma Okoro, please enjoy the rest of your weekend.
From Fina Okechukwu, enjoy the rest of your day and do all to join Chukwuma and Moses for the newspaper review proper. That'll be on top of the hour at 9 a.m. Voice of the People TV.
I'm Moses Humphrey. Join us again. Bye for now.